But I'm here to talk to you. My name is Tracey Mason. After 3 decades in the wine and spirits industry, I left and joined and co-founded a company called House of Saka. We are the first and only cannabis-infused, alcohol-removed wine from Napa Valley. And in addition to that, we make our newest addition is Saka Spark Mimosa, which is the first and only alcohol-removed sparkling wine to bolster its flavor and effects with mimosa strain-specific live resin and natural essence of orange blossom nectarine. It is an extraordinary, extraordinary beverage. So, welcome to the Cannabis Drinks Expo. I'm here to talk to you about something that's really important and interesting. Are we all high, or can cannabis really, really replace the alcohol occasion? And I'm gathering that you're all here because you've seen the headlines, right? Or you're actually part of this industry. Everyone's talking about cannabis-infused beverages and how they're going to take over. Right now, cannabis-infused beverages are growing at a rate faster than the cannabis sector itself. So there's definitely something to it, right? Big companies are jumping in. There's a lot of headlines around it, but we still remain a kind of small section of the industry. And I'm going to give you my perspective on that as we go through today. Ooh, I always do that. And I know that you've also seen some of the polls, right? We know this is so, imagine that you're sitting there, you're the CEO of Diageo, and you're seeing this type of poll come out that says that, the majority of consumers believe that that cannabis is safer than alcohol. And if given the choice, what would actually be legal, more consumers would rather have cannabis be legal than alcohol, right? Now, after having spent many years in executive positions in the alcohol industry, I can tell you what we talk about all the time in every meeting, in every board meeting, was how do we capture more share of throat? Now, I know that sounds like some kind of really scary porn movie, but it's not. It's about capturing the consumers. If you're drinking, for example, if you're drinking rum, how can I take you away from, say, for example, Bacardi and bring you to Captain Morgan? We want to increase your share of throat. And so when these executives are now looking at this industry, and particularly cannabis-infused beverages, they're saying, holy smokes, literally, figuratively, cannabis-infused beverages can actually take away our share of throat. So that's why they're diving in. That's why they're really looking at it. And we know that when you look at other consumer packaged goods industries, and you look at, a Safeway, for example, a Safeway alone, an average Safeway carries 600 SKUs of wine, and wine alone. That's not including all the sodas, all of the seltzers. So packaged beverage, as a rule, is huge. It's about 15% of all C-source sales. It's a massive, massive industry. So that also kind of gives you an indication of where this category could go. We know that big alcohol is watching this industry like a hawk, right? We know that they're looking at us. We know some of them, like Constellation, for how you feel about their major investment in the space aside, has jumped in. We know Molson Coors has jumped in. A big announcement came out yesterday with their collaboration with Two Roots. Things are happening in the space. But you know what they're doing? They're looking at the space very closely, but they're looking at it through the lens of highly regulated environments like alcohol. And so for companies like us, and I know a lot of my colleagues are out here that are also cannabis-infused beverage makers, we have to be really careful about how we approach our beverages and how we approach the consumer with our beverages. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. And then, if you believe my beautiful friend Jocelyn at Headset, and frankly, who wouldn't, Jocelyn will, I'm sure she's speaking at this conference, will tell you all of the statistics that back up everything that we believe, that cannabis-infused beverages are going to be huge. But the question remains, right? The question still remains, are cannabis-infused beverages really that 800-pound gorilla that are going to eat up not only share of alcohol, but overall the share of the cannabis category in general? And I think those are the questions that we're all asking ourselves. And, we do have a very, very long way to go to get there, but, let's just talk through that. So is it true, is it possible that that cannabis can replace the alcohol occasion? Well, let's really think, and it kind of depends. Let's think about the alcohol occasion, right? When after years in alcohol and teaching all of Diageo's courses around the world about how you market alcohol, I can tell you that you look at it through a triangulated lens of three things. First is your need state, second is the occasion, and third is the venue. When you triangulate all of those things is how you get to where you target your consumer in that space or in that need state or in that occasion, and how you are able to craft your beverages and your beverage selections around that. It's actually much more sophisticated than you might believe. So when you think about need states, they're really about three major things. There's excitement, right? There's engagement, and then there's relaxation. So excitement, oh my God, I want to go out with my friends. I want to, have a great time. I've had whatever that looks like. When you're engaged, it's like, hey, let's go play poker. Let's all drink beers and really get to have that talk. Or when you want to come home from work and you want to just let your shoulders drop and you want to relax and unwind. So looking at occasion too, right? So now you have these need states. This is how I feel. So how do I marry a beverage to how I'm feeling? What need do I have? And then you marry that against both occasions and venues. So, you think about occasions, it's everything from, is it celebratory? Oh, I want to go celebrate something. Is it a meal enhancement? Oh, I'm having dinner tonight, and what wine is going to pair best with this meal? Is it, you're sitting in the back of a 78 station wagon smoking weed with your friends? I mean, that might have been me, but it was still an occasion. And then you think about the venues. Are you going to a wine bar? Are you going to a club? Are you going to go play pool at Smitty's in Sausalito? Where is the venue that you're having it? All of those things, right? All of those things impact the choice that consumers make at any given alcohol occasion. But what's most important, and the umbrella under which all of those things fall, is really experience. Now think about that. Consumers have experience with alcohol, right? So they've been most of us have been experiencing alcohol way before we were legally able to do so. So the experience factor really helps hone in that choice and hone in that comfort level that we're looking for in cannabis. So an experience is driven by four things, the 4 A's, right? You have acceptability. Is this something that I accept as part of my lifestyle that I feel aligned with? You have accessibility. Can I get it? Is it easy to find? We have affordability. Can I afford it? And then obviously awareness. Am I aware of this product at all? And think about, since the time that you were little kids, that awareness factor has been drilled into you. You had the Clydesdale horses with Budweiser. You have millions of commercials. You have your parents drinking a glass of wine at dinner or having a scotch with their friends on the weekends. We've seen it, right? So the issue with experience is really hard, because if you think about our industry, these 4 A's are so hard to achieve. Our acceptability is very limited still, even though the majority of Americans believe that cannabis should be legal. How many of you have had someone come up to you and say, oh my God, I'm really curious about your beverages, but I'm afraid of them? I'm like, I just watched you do 4 shots of tequila, and you're afraid of my 5 milligram drink? Okay, there's a problem there, right? And then we have accessibility. In the state of California, what do we have? About 720 really viable retail outlets that we can sell our products in. And of that 720, a brand like House of Saka that's targeting a luxury consumer, that's really about 200. So accessibility is the issue, and we really, really haven't figured out DTC yet. Once we do, I think that's going to be a huge thing for us. Affordability, the onerous taxes that we all face as part of our industry really impact our affordability. And then again, awareness. We're so limited in how we can talk about our products. We're limited in social media. I mean, everywhere where everyone else, despite the regulations around tobacco and alcohol, and there's very, very strict guidelines around that, cannabis can't even hold a candle to it, right? So we're so blocked with our experience. So we've got a really, really bad experience problem, right? So how do we overcome this idea of experience? Because guess what? We can't, as cannabis-infused beverage, really effectively take over or even steal share from the alcohol occasion without that experience. I mean, I gotta believe that every person in this room that's been involved has had someone come up to them and say what I just said before. I really am so curious about it, but I don't know what it's going to do to me, and I'm genuinely afraid. Right? We've all seen this. All of us have seen this type of chart that compares, a 12-ounce beer, an ounce and a half shot of straight alcohol, a 5-ounce glass of wine, that tells you, essentially, if you have one of these, sort of, you're going to feel the same way. Whether it's you do a shot, you have a glass of wine, or you have a beer. Everyone's seeing this, right? We all get it. They're even hanging these up in bars. Where does that sit for cannabis, right? And it's interesting because our particular industry, our segment, the cannabis drinks industry, is really the only area in cannabis, because of our metered dose, because of our rapid onset, that can really attack this question, right? So that's what we need to be focusing on. We need to make consumers understand what our drinks will feel like. And we need to compare them, and we need to put studies together that help us understand, if I have a 5-ounce bottle of Spark, which I hope you all do, and I hope you do frequently, how is that going to compare to 2 ounces, to a glass of wine? Or how is that going to compare to how I feel, right? And what happens if I have 2? What happens then? So we talk so much, right, about microdosing and about this and about alternative cannabinoids. No one has any freaking idea what we're talking about. We're putting 100 milligram drinks on the same shelf as 2.5 milligram drinks, which is both irresponsible and does not help our cause at all in terms of helping the consumer understand what they're drinking. So, I kind of call on us as an industry, call on my colleagues of the Cannabis Beverage Association to really start working on this question, because that's really what's going to give us the advantage that we need. We know that our drinks are better and safer and healthier than any other form of cannabis consumption, right? And we know that, why isn't this working? And we know that what's coming. I'm asking you to sort of look around the corner. We're all talking about legalization and what that's going to do to us. But think about that. Think about the way that alcohol, about the way that vaping, the way that tobacco, any kind of combustible, is completely villainized by the federal government, and which limits the access to the consumer. And so do you think that cannabis is going to be the exception to that rule, that everyone's going to be like, don't smoke cigarettes, but go ahead, light up a joint on the side of the street? No, that's not going to happen. And vaping, we saw with the vape crisis in 2019. I was working for CannaCraft at that time, an amazing company that makes amazing products. But yet that vape crisis, for that blip in that radar, really hurt us. It hurt our bottom line. And it's hard to recover from that. We have recovered. The industry's recovered. But looking long term, think about vaporize. Think about vaporized products. Is that something that's going to be widely accepted? Whereas cannabis-infused beverages have no combustion. They have no long-term effects on your body, at least, working with Vertos and trying to really study that. We can't find any. The half-life on cannabis is too low, and the ingredients that we're using to use our emulsions are all already FDA-approved food-grade substances that help drive our emulsions. So yes, cannabis-infused beverages are the future of cannabis consumption, but can they take away from the alcohol occasion? And I say yes, they can, but what I'm saying is that we as an industry need to grow up. And I don't mean that in a negative way, because I'm exceedingly immature as a 53-year-old woman, and I'm proud of that. But what I mean to say is that we need to think about not where we are, not where we're sitting right now as an industry. We need to think about where we're going to go, right? And we need to start following the guidelines that alcohol has had to follow. Now, for my company, we've been doing that since the very beginning. I've said in hundreds of interviews, you know, what is House of Saka? I'm like, House of Saka is a sophisticated adult beverage for a sophisticated adult. Our mantra needs to be, if we want to really move forward and drive our industry forward, our mantra needs to be about responsible consumption. Every single bottle, every single ad, anything that we put out there at House of Saka has a responsibility message to it. Again, because we rolled in from alcohol, so we get it. So we need to be focused on responsibility. We need to be focused on understanding and knowing your dose. We need to stop pretending like people know what the hell we're talking about, because they don't. I mean, my wife, who obviously spends a lot of time drinking my beverages, is constantly asking me, like, well, help me understand, what do you mean when you say milligram? If I'm looking at this one and it's 100 what does that even mean? Now, obviously I explained it to her and she's pretty smart and she gets it now, but still, it's the common consumer doesn't get it. So we as an industry, we have an opportunity to steal share from alcohol if we act like alcohol, right? If we make our beverages, like we've made House of Saka, that are alcohol adjacent in such a way that they can take over that occasion. You can bring a House of Saka wine to Thanksgiving with your parents. You can have a bottle of Saka Spark with your girlfriends at brunch, as opposed to having all the calories and alcohol that my friends would drink a lot of during any given brunch or any given sort of bubbles occasion. So those are the things that I think we need to do in order to do it, in order to steal that share. So the question still then, right, can cannabis steal from the alcohol occasion? And my point of view is absolutely, absolutely, but we have a lot of work to do, right? We have a lot of work to do to understand and how to compare and to make consumers feel comfortable in their purchase. And doing that, if you remember those 4 A's that I talked about earlier, you know, acceptability, affordability, awareness, accessibility, you know, and how limited we are, that's going to be really, really challenging. But you know what? Everyone in this room that's been in this industry knows how challenging it is. And we're pioneers, and pioneers make shit happen. So we have an opportunity now to define a category in such a way that no one else, that no other segment or another vertical of cannabis can do. And all we need to do, which is going to be hard, is really help consumers understand the experience in a way that they can really digest it and get it. And to do that, we need to self-police, we need to be responsible, and we need to make sure that our messaging is super, super adult, and that they get it and they understand where our beverages fit in their lifestyle. Because it's not about, right now, the legacy consumer. I mean, we're blessed with House of Saka Spark because we're using live resin, has really, you know, really worked with the legacy consumer as well as the CannaCurious consumer, but that's a rare thing. You know, if you think about it, you have a can who's doing an incredible job, right, bringing new consumers into the cannabis space by going with a microdose and giving people that opportunity to sort of understand how cannabis is going to make them feel. And then you have super, super high potency beverages, which are addressing a very singular legacy user. It might be a substitute, for example, of lighting up a joint, is that you take a 100 milligram shot of THC at any given point. If your body can handle that, that's awesome. But we need to help the consumer understand those occasions. What is the occasion for House of Saka or for a Kaizen or for a 100 milligram shot, and where does that fit into the alcohol occasion? So that's my point of view, and I want to be clear to say that's strictly my point of view. And I want to thank you, this giant crowd, for being here. And we have about 10 minutes left if you have any questions. All right. I mean, I realized I was so insightful that, oh, good, there's one. Oh, sir.
So you said House of Saka, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what type of wine is it? Is it just like, you do all different types of wine, or is it just...
So right now we have three SKUs. You say that. One is House of Saka White, which is a barrel-aged, alcohol-removed Napa Valley Chardonnay. We remove the alcohol and replace that with a proprietary THC CBD formulation. So with 40 milligrams of THC, 5 milligrams of CBD per bottle. So you're getting a full spectrum effect, about 8 milligrams per glass. And it's House of Saka Pink, which is our best seller, which is a rosé of Pinot Noir and Cabernet Sauvignon from Napa Valley, also alcohol removed, replaced with THC. And then House of Saka Spark is a sparkling Chardonnay, which is one of the base ingredients in any sparkling wine. And we remove that alcohol and replace that with mimosa strain-specific live resin. It's yummy.
Sounds great.
It is. Any other questions? Sir? Oh, sorry. These lights are really bright.
I understand the challenges in regards to gatekeepers and getting the gatekeepers to understand, where the category fits.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them see numbers, and that's really where they're at. But beyond that, getting the gatekeepers at a chain level or at the consumer level to create the pull. Are you guys doing stuff on social media? Or do you have marketing materials that are kind of conveying the same education as well? Because I think what I see on social media for a lot of these companies are more lifestyle rather than educational pieces. And I think it'd probably be a good call for us to on social media to be a little bit more educational.
I definitely agree with you. The challenge with that is we're so highly restricted in social media. Can has actually been really successful in using social media with not even having their logo. They just put their brand essence out there through. So we can't really use the word cannabis. We can't use. So it's really hard to use social media toward that. From what we do is that we spend a lot of time talking to media. So if you Google House of Saka, I mean, we've been in every major publication several times. Everyone from Rolling Stone to Esquire to Forbes to Hollywood Reporter to OK Magazine to Oprah Magazine. And so we're using that platform. We're having the media tell our story for us until such time as we're able to be more in front of the consumer in the ways that we really want to be. And I think you're right. The lifestyle thing is missing. It's one thing to show a young girl in a bikini drinking a cannabis-infused beverage, which I don't recommend doing, going back to the whole responsibility thing. But you're setting up the lifestyle, right? So all of our ads are very, very highbrow and very high fashion. Again, because we're really targeting and we're watching. We're looking forward to when big alcohol comes in. We just don't want to have any kind of marks against us in that regard. So I think as an industry, we really need to get together and really talk about that message, leverage the media in the right way. Because the media, I'm sure you all know, I mean, gosh, Jamie, she's launching her product, and we've all been in the media so much because the media really wants to talk about what we're doing, right? So we need to leverage that and get that message out there. So that's really the best way, I think, to do that. And then there's some really great podcasts, and so there's some other ways of getting that message. But nothing will really, I think, overcome it like the experience itself. What does it feel like? And that's really hard because it's like 100 milligrams of THC would put me on the floor for 3 days. But yet I have friends that can do that with no problem, For a CannaCraft consumer coming into the space, a CannaCraft consumer coming into space, a glass of House of Saka Pink, a 5-ounce glass of House of Saka Pink is about the equivalent how it's going to make you feel, and even in the same time frame, as about a 5-ounce glass of wine. But we need the data to back that up, right? Because I can't put that in the media. You know, I can tell people that, and I can reinforce that message. But until we have the science to really back that up, it's difficult. So, you know, again, I'm calling on my colleagues to help us really define that, because I think ultimately that's going to make all of our lives and all of our jobs that much easier.